So, the latest in complete and utter madness from Republicans is H.R. 861. This fucking bullshit was proposed by Republican Representative Matt Gaetz from Florida, Representative Thomas Massie from Kentucky, Stephen M. Palazzo from Mississippi, and Republican Representative Barry Loudermilk from Georgia. Of course, all three of them are Southern conservatives. And it's a bill designed to abolish the Environmental Protection Agency. So basically, this is completely insane. The EPA is an agency that makes a huge positive impact on Americans in the United States. They help with everything from the standards for water, air, and air pollution. They help with things like regulating and monitoring chemicals and all kinds of other things like that. They were originally established in 1970 by Richard Nixon and his administration, a Republican administration, back when Republicans at least pretended to be somewhat reasonable and interested in caring about the lives of American citizens. And the EPA was basically established with the goals of preventing and detecting environmental crimes, informing the public of environmental enforcement, and setting and monitoring standards of air pollution, water pollution, hazardous wastes, and chemicals. All of which I think very reasonably can and should be regulated by the federal government. So the arguments against the EPA I've heard are mostly completely illogical. They primarily focus around either cutting federal spending or job growth, neither of which is particularly helped by eliminating the Environmental Protection Agency. In fact, the opposite is true. The EPA had a budget of under $8.5 billion in 2016. The United States federal government had a budget of $3.854 trillion that same year. The EPA only accounted for 0.0022% of the federal budget, and that's rounding up slightly. So the idea that cutting the EPA is somehow going to minimize woeful government spending is absolutely ridiculous. In fact, it's even more absurd when you consider the fact that the estimates for Trump's falls anywhere between 12 billion and 38 billion from some sources. So, it drives me up the wall. This is not some kind of outlandish, useless government program where the spending is not going to helping people. It's ridiculous. A lot of the EPA's programs are fucking great. They have the Safer Choice program, the Energy Star program, the Safer Detergent Stewardship Initiative, the fucking EPA Water Sense program. All of those basically incentivize corporations to try and meet certain standards with their products for energy efficiency or water efficiency, etc. Or in terms of the other two, safety. So to get those standards, you have to meet very specific requirements set by the EPA, but in exchange, businesses and individuals are more likely to buy your products. So the idea is that they actually incentivize innovation and development of green and chemically safe technology. They also regulate pesticides. They regulate fucking fuel regulations for fuel efficiency. The breadth of things that the EPA does for the American people it's massive. They do all kinds of different things through different programs. They do education and outreach. They pursue environmental justice. There's so much that the EPA does with such a relatively small budget. Oh, and let's talk about job growth, because they also employ 15,376 people as of 2016. So why this matters is because Trump's fucking Keystone XL pipeline, which he justifies by saying it'll create 30,000 jobs. First of all, no, it won't. It probably won't even create that many temporary jobs, and it'll only create 50 permanent jobs. Double digits. 50. That's it. And that's one of the slightly higher estimates I've seen. I saw one as low as 30 for permanent jobs created by that pipeline. But even if we completely ignore the pipeline, even if we completely ignore that this would basically be game over for climate change, because it would totally eliminate a whole bunch of federal oversight of environmental regulations, and probably lay the groundwork for repealing the regulations themselves, all of this is pretty much incentivized by the fucking fossil fuel industry. And here's the thing about the fossil fuel industry. First of all, they pretty much own a significant chunk of the government. Obviously, a great example of that is former Exxon CEO fucking Rex Tillerson. So that's just super swell. So yeah, no, the government's totally not in bed with big oil. That's just crazy. Although they did have a $21.6 billion subsidy for production and exploration in the oil, gas, and coal industries in 2013. So there's that. So if you really cared about fucking government spending, you'd care about corporate welfare. So you don't really care about government spending. And you don't care about jobs. Do you know why? Because the solar sector actually already employs 77% more workers in the US than the fucking coal mining industry does. The coal mining industry only employs 70,000 workers, according to Fortune magazine. That's a small town. That is a town's worth of people. Oh my god. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there were only 185,000 workers employed in the business of extracting oil and gas in the U.S. by the end of 2015. In fact, 1.2% of all jobs, or 1 in 83 jobs created in the U.S. last year, were jobs in the solar industry. Over the last year, the oil sector, on the other hand, has actually been bleeding jobs because of the low oil prices. The number of active oil rigs has actually fallen 61% to only 698. Active oil fields are declining, and it really doesn't look like gas prices are going to recover anytime in the near future. And that's probably because oil is an obsolete industry. It's a dying industry. You're at the point where there's more competition and more supply than there is demand. And then on top of that, there's more and more alternatives. There are all kinds of alternatives being discovered for fossil fuel in terms of energy, and even more alternatives are being created for transportation. So long term, ultimately, the oil industry is on its way out. And don't think that the oil CEOs don't know that. They're just trying to get every single drop of profit they can before they switch to something more profitable. That's what they're fucking doing. They're going to switch to clean energy eventually. They're just not in a hurry to do it because they want to squeeze every last drop they can. But the fact is, they're already not very good at that. They're already shutting down operation because it's not that profitable, and there's nothing the government can do to make it profitable again. There's nothing they can do to revitalize that industry. They're already massively subsidizing it, and it's not helping. But you know what the fastest growing occupation in the United States is? Wind turbine technician. The solar industry is growing. The solar and wind industries and other clean energy industries, including nuclear, they're growing at 12 times the rate of most other jobs in the U.S. economy. While the coal and gas industry are bleeding jobs. Cutting the EPA will never bring those jobs back. You will not get those jobs. They are gone. They're on their way out. That's it. The only reason the EPA is even part of this discussion is because corporations have an incentive to get rid of the EPA because of its oversight. They're trying to dupe you into letting us get rid of the EPA because jobs, because spending. But really, what they're actually trying to do is make sure that they don't get prosecuted when they dump their toxic waste in your backyard, in your drinking water. And what I don't get is, you conservatives, aren't you outdoorsy? I'm a filthy liberal, and I go camping usually for 2 weeks a year up north in Canada. I love the outdoors. Don't you love the outdoors? Why don't you want to protect your country? Why don't you want clean rivers and lakes to fish in? Why don't you want lots of abundant forests to hunt in? Why don't you want a beautiful place to camp where you know there won't be chemicals seeping into the ground? I just don't understand how you can be so opposed to the environment just so that you can cling to an ideology that's not even really that consistent with what you personally enjoy in life. So for fuck's sake, oppose HR 861. This is completely ridiculous. This is just blatant corporatist government policy that is not designed to help you or the American people in any way. It is designed pretty much explicitly to make it easier for corporations to pollute and to screw people over. So, for the love of fucking God, call your representatives, because this cannot be allowed to pass. Rant's out.